pressure continues this morning on corn, soybeans, and wheat. I think for a minute there, beans were at least acknowledging the upside exists and then fell back since then. Today we're talking agronomy, and then we'll see what's on the minds of our farmer panel today. Live from a ginger snap kind of day via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk. This morning we'll begin with a conversation with agronomist Ken Ferrie from Crop-Tech Consulting. Then it's our Farmer Forum with panelists Bob Hemesath and Jean Millard. Directly following the news, Margie Eckelkamp from The Scoop. I'm in for Chip this morning. It's me, your pal, Davis Michelson, behind the big green leafy microphone of AgriTalk. Hope you are well on this fine Wednesday morning. We are approaching Hump Day Mountain here. We'll be at the summit this afternoon. Ted Seifert from Zaner Ag Hedge is going to join us this afternoon. Chip is traveling today. He's off traveling, and then he'll be back tomorrow morning, and then he's going to do more stuff. It's going to be a fun rest of the week for us, and I hope you'll tune in and enjoy it. We've got some great guests coming up to finish out the week, beginning this afternoon with Ted Seifert and a mystery guest. He brings a mystery guest with him usually. We never know who it's going to be, but it's always great. It's always really great stuff. So a ginger snap kind of day today. No chips in this cookie. It's your pal, Davis Michelson. Hot down here in Kansas City, 87 degrees Fahrenheit. If in case you were listening in the afternoon show yesterday, I will tell you, you'll be pleased to know I did suck it up and decide to go ahead and go out, brave the heat, and get this lawn mowed. I was out Friday and Monday, got home Monday evening. I didn't want to with the lawn. I got to unpack, and all that sort of stuff. So, but I got after it yesterday. Now, I will confess, I did not complete the job. It was just too hot. It was like 100 degrees. And so for a little self-care, I decided, you know what, dude, mow the lawn parts today. This is yesterday. And now today, this afternoon, when I get off work, I'm going to head out there with the weed whacker. So I didn't get it completely done, but I do have a plan in place to complete the project. I've been out in the heat, and I guess I would just say can confirm it is awful hot out there in some spots around this great nation. And so do be careful out there. Hydration is the key. Get out of the sun whenever you can. Just small bites through the heat of the day. I was at Yellowstone camping one time, and a sign there has been burned into my brain. It said, be like an elk. They rest through the heat of the day in the shade, and then they hike in the morning and in the evening hours when it's cooler. Just something to keep in mind. We're talking Ken Ferrie today. He's got corn college stuff to talk about, and it almost feels like we might need a little bit of an agronomy checkup. Chip and I were talking about my trip across central Missouri over the weekend. The corn looks pretty good. Beans are canopied. Everything, most things are a nice deep green, but I can really only speak for what I saw so far on either side of I-70 through the great state of Missouri. And so we're going to talk with Ken Ferrie to get a broader picture, find out what's the word on the street at Corn College, and what we might need to be thinking about agronomically as we move forward through this growing season. And then our Farmer Forum, Bob Hemesath and Jean Millard, a couple of really smart dudes. I can't wait to see what's on their minds. There's an awful lot floating around. We'll leave it there. I'm going to start the news with the weather. Jeez. The National Weather Service outlook calls for a dangerous heat wave to expand from the plains in the Mississippi Valley into the southeast as another heat wave develops over portions of the west. Severe weather and flash flooding are expected for the northern and central plains and Midwest today into tomorrow. Another threat for flash flooding Wednesday in northern New England. And monsoonal shower and thunderstorm chances continue for the Southwest. I think the key word here is volatility. Maybe a runner-up would be dangerous heat wave. Let's keep an eye on that. AccuWeather does say a developing tropical rainstorm in the Atlantic Ocean could strengthen into a named storm later this week or during the weekend and bring a potential impact to the United States coast. The tropical rainstorm is currently moving through an area that is not conducive for development, but may soon move into an area with more favorable conditions. We've got a USDA daily sale to report, 104,572 2 metric tons of corn to unknown destinations during the 2024-25 marketing year. Unknown destinations. I wonder, okay, unknown when it's beans, unknown when it's corn. I don't know. The Fed will conclude its 2-day monetary policy meeting by keeping interest rates unchanged, according to expectations. Particular attention will be on the post-meeting comments and on Chair Jerome Powell's press conference to see if there are any strong indications of when the Fed will begin cutting interest rates, which some believe may be in September. A letter from a dozen senators, including Democrats and Republicans, urged Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen to ensure that only domestic ingredients can receive biofuels tax credits. The bipartisan push underscores the mounting pressure on the Biden administration to halt the flood of foreign-used cooking oil that lawmakers say threatens American farmers and the intention of President Joe Biden's climate law. Maybe I'm going to highlight that one and talk to our panel about that. The Democratic National Committee has confirmed that Kamala Harris will be the sole candidate on the roll call of delegates to select the Democratic Party's presidential candidate. Although 3 other candidates registered, they failed to gather enough signatures to qualify. Harris has closed the gap on Donald Trump across 7 key battleground states, according to a recent Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll. And with that, let's bring in Margie Eckelkamp from The Scoop. Let's talk about rebate programs. Margie?
Hey, good morning. Yes, I just had an interview with Mike Weedle. He is the president and founder of Stratus Ag Research. And what they've done is aggregated a report from many studies that are both grower and farmer facing. And they've gleaned out some insights regarding rebate programs and those grower facing rebate programs. Now, these have really gained in popularity since 2020. And Mike shares that that's probably why the overall impression of these rebate programs has improved, and it's improved greatly. Retailers are more used to the administration process and what it takes to actually file, process, and receive those rebates. And growers are used to thinking about the offers provided in those programs when they're making their input decision. Now, Mike does highlight that there are a few things that have been really disproved as far as concerns. And one was from the retail perspective that it would erode the relationship with farmer customers. Their research shows that that concern has almost gone away. The second is that maybe these rebate programs would incentivize a product purchase that wasn't agronomically advisable, but retailers and farmer customers are saying they're confident in their input purchases that are made with these programs. And third was what I alluded to earlier, and really the administration task. And Mike does share that he thinks that manufacturers have made strides, but they can continue to make strides in what is required of these retailers from the whole data entry all the way through all the programs. So if folks want to learn more, we've got an interview with him on the Scoop podcast. We also have details posted at thedailyscoop.com.
Hey, thanks, Margie. Ken Ferrie will be with us to talk a little bit of agronomy, the word on the street at Corn College. I think this comes at a really, really good time. The heat, we got to think about it. Disease pressure, we got to think about it. Bug pressure, we got to think about it. We're going to have Ken Ferrie to talk about it next on AgriTalk. We've cleared the schedule for you. Give us a call at 855-482-5524 and join the conversation. Well, I wish I had some. We'll bring you in. We got the Farmer Forum coming up next. Sure, if you got something on your mind, give us a shout. But in the meantime, I've got Ken Ferrie from Crop-Tech Consulting. Ken, welcome back to AgriTalk. We love chatting with you about the agronomy of the world. How you doing?
Doing great. I'm glad to be with you guys.
Outstanding, sir. Now, I wanted to talk to you specifically. I at least want to start at Corn College. Now, Ken, I think it was 2013 when I attended a Corn College. My daughter and I actually both went down there, and I'm going to tell you something. We learned an awful lot about corn and agronomy type stuff. But the thing, the thing that really stuck with actually us both was there was a talk on tow rope safety and how dangerous it can be to try to tow things with the wrong tensile strength of chain or rope or whatever. So Ken, talk to us broadly about Corn College, because it is focused on corn, absolutely, but there's a lot more to it than that, isn't there, sir?
Yeah, the general focus is on production, and we spent time working on corn and soybeans, and trying to, do the agronomy part inside, where we teach the concepts and ideas, and then take them out in the actual classrooms in the field for them to get a kind of a hands-on experience, and then blending in things that we think are important at the time, like the tow rope presentation, things like that.
Yeah.
This year we blended in a little bit on government programs out there today, as far as how they fit. They're not really agronomic, but they are financially, they're going to fit in as these markets and stuff put these guys on a little bit more of a squeeze, so how to navigate, for instance, through farm policy and stuff like that.
Wow.
So it's a mixture across the board, focusing heavy on agronomy, and trying to give them some take home, something they could go home that day and go to their corn or bean field and say, okay, I learned this. Let me see if I can apply it at my situation on my farm.
Yeah. What was your observation on that session on policy? Are farmers engaging with that, or are they sort of throwing up their hands and saying, heck with it, this is too much to bite off?
A little bit of both. Some of the comments were, if you got to depend on the government, you shouldn't be farming. Others very interested in how this whole thing pulls together. I think it makes a difference in age, so if you're of the age where you lived through pick and roll and pick certificates and stuff like that, you realize, in tighter margins, people had to do that to survive. If you haven't had to do that ever, it probably doesn't make as much sense. So, but I would say the majority wanted to be aware of the difference, because there's an awful lot of money right now at the farmers' disposal there in the RCPs and climate smart farming and all that. There's a lot of carrots being dangled in front of them, and trying to figure out, which ones are they eligible for, and what kind of jobs it's going to take. How would it change what's happening on their farm if they're going to participate in some of these? So for the general part of it, yeah, I would say there's a lot of interest, especially guys are, maybe not as well heeled as some of the gray hairs in the room, and realize that they're probably going to need some help, going forward until we get these prices turned around.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and today's really no help either. We're under some more pressure this morning already. Ken, how long have you been doing? Because there's also a soybean college, are they separate, right? There's corn college and then there's soybean college as well. Have I got that right?
No, they're actually blended together in a 2-day event. So we mix corn and soybean material through it. And I believe this is either a 16th or 17th year doing it. So, we've covered a lot of ground in that time frame. But yeah, it's been, I think this year we had 13, 14 states representative, plus a group out of Canada, a couple groups out of Canada, actually. That is probably one of the cooler parts about it, is to hear people from, Maryland to California to Kentucky to Minnesota in conversations and questions. There's probably as much learned during the breaks and at lunch as there is out in the field, as far as farmer talking to farmer type thing. And that's been one of the parts I really enjoy, is bringing them together from, pretty much the whole United States when we talk about corn and soybean production.
Yeah, absolutely. Are the issues impacting an Illinois farmer similar to those impacting a Maine or a California or a Pennsylvania farmer?
In a lot of ways, yes. In a lot of ways, no. Meaning in Maryland, for instance, they have laws. So we don't get regulated. Most of what we deal with here in the center of the country is programs that we can sign up for, incentives that we can get. Or when you're dealing with the Chesapeake Bay, you got laws out there, and you could be fined, and it could be a lot of tough things could happen to you if you ignored it, like some other farmers do in different parts of the country. So And as you move up into the Lake Erie Basin, there's laws up there. So different places, California, there's laws that they have to follow that are more stringent than what we would in the Midwest. So a lot of things are similar, but a situation where not everybody has maybe the opportunities that we have, depending on what watershed you live in and things like that as well.
Yeah.
As far as the more troubled the watershed, the more money is available for farmers to participate in different programs.
Mm-hmm. Speak to us now. Let's leave corn and soybean college, and go talk to us about the crop this year. I guess what sticks out to you? Is there a sore thumb in this crop somewhere, Ken, that you want to talk about?
Well, definitely there's a little bit of the haves and have-nots, and we found that out between all of our events here in the last 2 weeks, but people coming in from all over, and hearing the stories about what's going on in northern Iowa, southern Minnesota, Wisconsin with too much water, and guys along the East Coast down in Georgia and Virginia saying the drought is worse than 2012. Guys in Kentucky had over 40 inches, and their crop is taking a beating from that much rain. So those areas are you kind of feel for them. Outside of that, the majority of the people that were here at our events and the fields that we're in, this crop looks pretty strong, both in corn and beans. We've had more problem with wind as far as green snap and stuff like that. And for about a month, we've been fighting corn aphids. So they were a little bit of a battle there. So they're the two hiccups we're dealing with right now. But overall, I'm in the field just about every day. It's a pretty good looking crop. It doesn't help the prices any, but as I talk to my guys in, southern Iowa or northern Iowa that are looking out at a lot of water damage, you have to realize that if they get in the car and they do some traveling, they're going to see some pretty good crops outside of their area.
Yeah. Well, and I can confirm, and I really don't have much to compare to, but the Missouri crop, as I said earlier, does look pretty good. I've been talking it up pretty good, maybe a little bit too much here, Ken, but nice canopy on the beans, nice deep green color. This is what you want to see this time of year, isn't it?
Yeah. And, and we can go a long ways here with the water supply that we got. So worrying about running out of water by the end of the season, that can be a threat, but that would be more coffee shop talk than reality, meaning that we got this thing anchored pretty good. So we got those high winds, those issues, they can be a real downer on it, as far as the derechos and things like that could get in here. But this thing's looking pretty good.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's sort of at that time of year when what's done is done. What needs to happen is, ongoing crop development and such. We're thinking about finishing weather. Even Chip and I have sort of taken a little window here. We got crop tour coming up next month. Finishing weather here. What should farmers be thinking about? What is there anything to be doing right now to ensure that you hold on to as much yield as possible?
Here in the center of Illinois, Ohio, and parts of that, I still think we have a threat with corn aphids. We don't worry about pollination anymore, but the little boogers can wax up the top two leaves and throw the tip of that ear off. And typically when aphids are a problem and they've been around this long, we've been fighting them for over a month. Usually the population crashes all by itself and it goes away. For some reason this year it's not wanting to do that. So that's one area. And of course we're with this kind of moisture, we'll have to deal with tar spot. So most people have probably already, made their applications of fungicide to protect it, but tar spot will be one that, have to be watched. Soybean side, probably the disease is coming in soybeans. We can't do much about, but we want to keep an eye on soybean aphids as well. They can come in anytime between now and the Phoenician raisin rufus for. So aphids at R5 can be a real challenge on yield too. So nothing predictable per se. Just they got to keep their scouting regimens up and make sure that nothing's sneaking in the back door.
Outstanding. Ken Ferrie from Crop-Tech Consulting. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Appreciate you, buddy.
You bet. You guys take care.
Council.
Time for Markets Now with the experts from Pro Farmer.
And joining us now, Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady. Brian, pressure continues on the grains.
Yeah, Davis, the corn market had been holding up relatively well compared to the soybean market, but it's leading to the downside today, trading 6 to 7 cents lower here at mid-morning. And notably in the December contract, we've taken out the recent low at 403. We've also dropped below the psychological $4 level, and so there is probably some risk here that we get some more chart-based selling interest coming into the marketplace, and so we'll have to see how it finishes up today. Soybean market just continues to bleed here, anywhere from 2 to 4 cents lower in most of the contracts at mid-morning. Soy meal's lower as well. Soy oil kind of got a somewhat of a mixed tone, and then the wheat market being led down by HRW contracts with 6 to 7 cent losses there. I will note that the outside markets are pretty positive today, with the dollar down 400 points and crude oil up more than $2 here at mid-morning. So the selling in grains is definitely not taking into account the outside market action.
Well, let's talk about the cattle. I've got the fat cattle under some pressure.
Yeah, not a lot of pressure. Waiting on cash cattle trade to develop. We increased cash prices last week after 3 weeks of declines. The expectation, I think, at the moment is that we will see steady, maybe weaker prices this week, but just waiting around, and as a result, we're seeing a little bit of price pressure here at mid-morning. Feeder cattle are trading to the upside because of the weakness in the corn market, but gains are limited. And then the hog futures, they're pushing to the upside on continued strength in the cash index, which marked a new seasonal top today.
That's Pro Farmer's own editor, Brian Grady, on Markets Now. Stick around for more AgriTalk. Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. In the morning, you're coffeeed up and you're thinking. In the afternoon, you've calmed down, but you're still thinking. We're here all day. AgriTalk. Well, we haven't quite been here all day just yet, but we're working on it. We're working on it, and I hope you'll be with us for the remainder of the day as well. We got Ted Seifert coming up at 2:06 Central Time for this afternoon's exciting edition of AgriTalk. Looking forward to that. Great talk with Ken Ferrie there. A few things to look out for. You got to be careful. You can't just drop her in neutral. You got to continue scouting. You got to stay vigilant, but I probably don't need to tell you that. Let me bring in my panel here. We'll begin with Bob Hemesath. Bob, welcome to AgriTalk. Good morning, sir. What's shaking on your end of the world?
Good morning. Just same old. Watching the corn grow and the beans grow. We are a little. Actually, we're probably as dry as we've been here since the first part of planting. So we've gone about 2 weeks with a few showers here and there, kind of spotty. But we're actually getting to the point where a little rain would be good.
And you're located where generally?
Northeast Iowa, Kelmer, south of Decorah.
Okay. Yep. Very good. Very good. I can remember, was that last year maybe, or perhaps the year before, we had Crop Tour come kind of swinging through that corner of the state, and there was what Brian Grady described as some flash drought that had taken place up in there. Are you seeing something similar?
It's been dry for a couple weeks, but we're not anywhere near drought status by any means. We're just some of the corn and some of the stress or where it had stress earlier is starting to show a little stress now because of the dry weather, but nothing of any drought concerns, no.
Well, and I know that there's been some winds, some hails, all kinds of stuff thrown at different portions of this crop. You got everything still standing in one piece?
Yeah, we've missed the stuff that's all gone south of us here this last few days. And we had a wet May, June. I mean, we had 30 plus inches on a few farms, but just a lot of rain, and wet conditions. We had one windstorm come through, but might have did maybe a little green snap here a couple weeks ago, but nothing of major consequence yet.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I don't want to jinx you. Scale of 1 to 10, and you can choose not to answer. Scale of 1 to 10. How does this year's crop stack up to your APH? Do you believe at this point?
I would say we got some really good looking corn. Then we got some that spots that are bare and stuff like that. So I would say we're probably pretty close to APH. So
Okay.
if that's 7, 8, somewhere in there, I guess. So.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll call it a 7.8. I think we'll go with that. How's that sound? A 7.8, baby.
All right, that works.
Gene Millard, I think I've got you zeroed up in northwestern Missouri. Welcome to AgriTalk, sir. How's your morning going so far?
Well, thank you, and thanks for the invitation. Good to be with you this morning.
Gene, I've been talking up this Missouri crop. The wife and I made the drive from KC to Herman over the weekend. I have nothing to compare this to, so I'm going to stop talking about it. Talk to me about the northern Missouri corn and soybean crops. How do they look in your opinion? Because your opinion comes with a little bit of gravitas, sir.
Well, in our particular area, we had an excellent corn planting season, and the guys that planted beans first back there the 1st of April, that was a magic formula, it seemed like, this year. So the corn got off to a really good start, but then the corn was probably not even, first 2-leaf stage, but a little past spike. We got a real heavy rain, and that really did a number on plant populations out there in the terrace channels and anything that was a flat spot that held water. So other than that, we're about 4.5 inches above average rainfall for this area. As in the month of May and June, I think we got a rain every week, and which was ideal for the corn crop then. We lost probably, I'd say, 10% of our plant population, but the corn really took off, looked good. Finally got down to, the nitrogen, and we top dressed nitrogen again just before it tasseled, and then got an inch of rain the next day, and so all that worked out great. But soybean planting was a nightmare because you'd get one of these inch rains. Next day it would sunny off, and the wind would blow where you couldn't spray. And then about the third day, you get back in the field and you plant beans for a day, and then it rained.
Yep.
And it was just off and on again, getting bean planted all the way up to Memorial Day weekend, which was a little bit late. We'd like to get them in earlier than that. So that was a frustration, but the end result was that there was never a good opportunity to kill weeds. And soybeans didn't seem to like wet feet, but the water hemp just loved it. Yeah. And so everybody's been fighting weed control out here, and we've sprayed beans now 3 times over the top to try to get a kill on this persistent water hemp issue. And I know I talked to our chemical applicator the other day, and he said, well, you got a neighbor over here that he's spraying for the 4th time. So you talk about expense, it's not been a pretty picture on the beans, and they're short.
Yeah. Bob, are your beans expensive this year as well?
Well, we're all corn. we're all corn. So,
okay.
But the guys around here have struggled to get beans sprayed. But most of them look like they got pretty good kill. They had a window to get them done. So they're pretty much, we're on schedule with their passes. So I'd say they aren't too far above normal on cost for weed control.
Okay, very good. Gene, you've had a unique perch, a unique view on agriculture for a good long time. Talk to me about this weed thing. Is this something that's been sort of building over time, and something that we maybe could expect to get worse next year if conditions are at all similar?
Well, this is a big question right now, because what happened this year, we put a residual herbicide on along with the burn down, but with so much precipitation, it just did not hold. And even after repeated residuals, they didn't hold. So we there's a real hole in herbicides right now. There's not been anything really new, come on the market for quite a little while. The Enlist program last year worked absolutely perfect. We had absolutely perfect weed control last year. And this year it's almost the totally opposite. Now, the beans are starting to look good now after the third spraying, and starting to get a little growth, but they're about a foot shorter than they were this same date last year.
All right. Well, let's move on to another topic. Bob, I'm going to start with you on this one. An awful lot of talk about interest rates, about financing, the cost of production, and now we're looking at we got a 3 handle on December corn, 398 and a quarter right now, and it doesn't look like there's a whole lot to perk it up here near term that we can see. What's the word on the street, Bob, in your area? Are farmers worried about it, or have they got cash reserves and they can weather the storm?
Well, I think everybody's situation's different, but I would say they're worried about it.
Yeah.
I was in Washington, D.C. for NCGA a couple of weeks ago, and there's a lot of concern in the row crop industry based on prices and where revenues are going to come out this year, and with some crop issues and all the things that we don't have a farm bill and all those kind of things. There's a lot of concern out there. There's a lot of concern that it's going to get worse from here. So with higher interest rates, that just makes things more difficult, with higher cost per acre to put a crop in when you're borrowing money to buy the inputs.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Gene, what's the financial situation there in your area?
I'd say by and large, we're blessed by having, excellent cash flows the last 2 or 3 years. And so there's a kind of a build-up, a little bit of cash availability to meet current needs. But we have an ag banker that sits on our ethanol plant board, and we met last week, and I said, well, what's the situation? And he said, well, it's going to be highly variable. Some guys are going to be okay because they've got enough equity and everything, but the cash flow situation is going to get a little bit tight. And so I'd say that in many cases, the bankers are more nervous than the guys operating.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder if that might put younger farmers who are a little bit more leveraged at risk here, more so than
absolutely
more established farmers.
Yeah, definitely.
Bob, I don't like the sound of that. Yeah, we need to encourage all the young farmers we can get, brother.
Yeah.
Well, leverage is an issue.
Uh-huh.
When it gets to be interest rates up here.
Yeah. Well, and and the other thing that would make this conversation completely different is perhaps a 5 handle on December corn. I think that would change a lot of attitudes out there right now. But one of the topics that keeps coming up here, and you mentioned the ethanol board, it's this biofuels thing. We've been talking about, it's cheaper to bring in Brazilian ethanol. Now we're getting this sketchy used cooking oil from China. There's a story here, and I read it. Senators, including Democrats and Republicans, so this goes across the aisle, but they want Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen to ensure that only domestic ingredients can receive biofuels tax credits. We're going to have to talk about this on the other side of the break. I don't know how we get to the point, fellas, to where we have to say only domestic ingredients can receive domestic biofuels tax credits. This is interesting here, and maybe I'm way off base. I don't know, but I would really like to get the opinion of our panel on this one right here on AgriTalk. You're listening to AgriTalk, where the conversation begins. Join us at 855-4-TALK-AG. Welcome back to AgriTalk, everyone. Your pal, Davis Michelson here. Chip will be back tomorrow morning for a little bit. Glad to be here. Glad you are with us. My guests today, Bob Hemesath and Gene Millard. Bob, I promised on the other side of the break that we were going to talk about the used cooking oil and biofuels tax credits and with the domestic and all that sort of stuff. We may get there, but I was listening to the chatter during the commercial there, and you brought up something that I've kind of ribbed at Chip over just a little bit. And I agree, it's a factor, but I got to bring it out in Chip's honor. Smoke from the wildfires, starting to impact you. You said you're up in Northeast Iowa. Um, Talk to me about the smoke from the wildfires and what impacts you are concerned about.
Well, you can. Last year we had a lot of smoke from the wildfires during the drought, and some would say that helped our crop. But we had sunshine all the time last year, and it may be, I don't know. There's a lot of different theories, but there's some people thought that it helped our crop. I'm concerned about this year because we haven't had as much sunshine, and then we get the smoke with the clouds, and it just makes it worse. Now we haven't had near as much as we had last year. We had last week was kind of hazy and cloudy from it, but I'm concerned that it cuts down our sunlight on the crop and the photosynthesis from that standpoint. But like last year, some claim it helped. So some are glad we're seeing the smoke. So
Yeah,
we'll see when we harvest. So yeah.
Well, Gene, I'm down here in the Constantinople of the Midwest, Kansas City itself. I don't know if I'm seeing smoke or not. You probably got a little cleaner air out there. What's your thought?
Well, it's a little cleaner than it was last year, actually. But you notice the only time you notice it is in like late evening, just about sunset. Then there's just kind of a haze.
Yeah.
And my wife the other day said, "Does your eyes burn?" And if I've been outside, most of the day, yeah, it does. You can feel it, but it's not there like last year. I don't think it has any climatic effect here.
Yeah. All right. Something else that I heard murmured between y'all two. Gene, you said crop insurance going to be awfully close on beans this year. Can we talk about that a little bit? What do you mean by that?
Well, when I look at the price guarantee at $11.55 or somewhere in that range, and if our APH is up there, right at 50, and I look at the board price right now, that ain't gonna work. $9 beans, $8 beans, and of course I listen to all the analysts say, well, according to the charts, it's going to go back to, 750 or whatever. Well, where does this adjusted for inflation thing come into play? There's an inflation factor on everything, and yet that doesn't seem to affect on commodity prices. So it's going to be close. I mean, when I'm looking at, our APH is probably going to be about as good as we can expect on beans this year.
Bob, you were talking about the potential for an APH on the corn there. I would imagine you're a little further away from crop insurance on the corn there, but beans in your area, yeah?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. The beans have struggled this year with the wet weather, and as we talked in the break, it's and I've heard Chip say it too. It's awful hard to judge a bean crop. A bad looking field of beans can still yield better than you think, but if they don't turn out like we hope they do, or there could be opportunity for crop insurance claims on them too if the yield and price. The yield's not there and the price is where it's at, there's definitely a possibility, but it all going to depend now on the yield. So, and the beans have perked up around here and looking better. So it's hard to say what they'll do. I wouldn't estimate a yield now at all because I'd be way off no matter what I did.
Yeah, me too.
I agree.
Yep. I feel the same way. Gene, what's the hay crop look like in your area?
I would probably have a surplus. I think I've bailed up every square foot of right of way, of the highway and waterways. And I mean, there's hay piled everywhere. And, I think the going price of selling hay has dropped about half from what it was a year ago.
Well, that's a good sign if you're feeding hay, I suppose.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
But, an interesting thing I thought I'd bring up, we sold our cattle last week in Lamona, Iowa, at a really nice little auction barn there. And these were last fall calves. The last ones dropped in December. But anyway, they were 7-weight steers, and they sold extremely well, I thought. But, when we were talking $2,000 a head for a yearling steer, That's not bad money. But what was surprising, sitting here at the sale, I saw a 2,100 pound Angus bull, 21.50, and he brought over $2.10 a pound. And yet I saw some prime black Angus steers. There was a small package that they were been well fed, looked like they'd been at the county fair somewhere, and they brought $1.85. Well, what makes the 2,100 pound bulls so much more valuable than a prime steer? I don't know.
I wouldn't have the answer to that.
Day old calves bring $400.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's an optimist.
As an optimist, yeah, I love that. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up here. Bob, I want to go to you first and just ask you what's your priority right now on the farm? What are you doing? What maybe should you be doing instead of talking to some yahoo on the radio?
Well, we're right in the point here where we should be spraying fungicide on the corn here. There's been a little bit done, but the window is open now, and so we're waiting for probably starting later the end of this week. We'll probably be doing that. There's some guys have been doing it, but we get it done with an airplane or drone. So we're kind of waiting there and just kind of scouting the crop and trying to figure out what it looks like.
Well, Bob, we appreciate you being here. Gene, you going to go out and make some more hay?
Well, that's going to be the plan for the afternoon. Our hay rake is all hooked up and ready to go.
Sun's shining and everything, buddy.
Oh, yeah. And it's going to be 99 degrees, so it'll dry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Gene Millard, for being here with us on AgriTalk. This afternoon, we've got Ted Seifried. I'm sending the big green leafy microphone over there just as soon as we get done here, folks. I'm so glad that you all tuned in to hear this. Thanks to Ken Ferrie. Thanks to Bob Hemesath and Gene Millard. Thanks to Big Apple Joe Stackler for pushing the big red button and getting us out there on the air. Hey, y'all have a great day.